Oh boy, here it is, the big one. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be taking our deep dive into the idea guy, and I'm sure as hell going to ruin your week with this shit. In December of 2018, when I first finished the first season of the Geno Samuel documentaries, they had been done since like August, but I had just completed them in December. I wanted to learn more about what modern Chris was doing. So I pulled up the quickie and I tried to figure out what was going on. And needless to say, it was kind of difficult. Chris believes that the dimension with all of his fictional characters in our dimension is going to merge. He believes that he is an anime goddess called CPU Blueheart, and he's married to multiple of his characters, including Magi-Chan and his adoptive father Mewtwo. And I couldn't really understand where all these things were coming from. And going deeper into my reading, I keep seeing this one name. All these crazy things lead back to one troll, the Idea Guy. The Idea Guy saga is long and complicated, so we have to get our timeline straight and briefly just cover the events of the saga. In November of 2017, Chris starts making historical references and politically incorrect jokes on his Facebook page. One major one referring to the Islamophobic "remove kebab" meme. This is the first time onlookers start speculating the existence of the Idea Guy. Also in November, Chris releases a video called "Freestyle Dance With Me for Our World," in which he references wearing a tinfoil hat to keep the man from reading your mind as he dances to a Serbian nationalist song.
People of the world, Christine Chandler coming to you live from home, and the world is in great need of your services as well as my own, most direly. So dance with me, if you will, to this lovely little polka, and put on a tinfoil hat to show that the man will not take over your minds. A beret will also suffice well. That's free in your own way. Even the dogs are singing.
Chris makes a video called Cherokee Enchant, which he replicates the Slav squatting meme, and he is seen wearing a striped Adidas tracksuit and holding a bottle of Smirnoff. During this time, the troll behind the Idea Guy started messaging members of the Kiwi farms inquiring about his ongoing trolling attempts. Members of the farms stayed quiet about these interactions with the Idea Guy until January of 2018. In early January 2018, Chris proclaimed that the characters Magi-Chan and Mewtwo had become married. It's not certain whether the Idea Guy was responsible for this, but considering the incestuous nature of this marriage, it likely is his fault. Chris also made a video destroying a doll, proclaiming that Nazis had bugged it. 3 days later, Chris made another video where he proclaims that Nazis should get out of Quickville as he attempts to tear apart an artificial Christmas tree.
You friggin' Nazis! I'm gonna kick you all out of Equestria! quick, yeah. Freaking Nazis, and with last one, kick your ass out. You're gonna. Oh, yeah. Come. Your definition of pure is so freaking nihilistic. You're so freaking dumbass. Kick your asses everywhere. Your asses out everywhere. Yeah.
On the 20th through the 21st of January, the Idea Guy took part in a conversation regarding his own antics, where he plays the role of an observer while white knighting himself. This conversation took place on the Kiwi Farms. A day later, he was doxxed. The original Idea Guy's name is Joshua Allen Wise. His dox is available on the Kiwi Farms. I'm not going to show it in this video, or I'm not going to show any doxes in any of my videos. If you want to find it, you can. It's pretty easy to find. Ironically, though, his dox contained this image of him. Shortly after his dox, Wise attempted to appeal to the staff of the Kiwi Farms to take down his dox. His request was denied, and somewhat ironically, the explanation as to why the request was denied predicts the continuation of Wise's trolling. However, Wise did not stop trolling Chris, and it is during this time where Wise got a few more associates, 2 unknowns and 1 Stephen Boyd, and they started to extort money from Chris. The earliest date of one of these receipts that is public is March 3rd. In March, Chris draws a picture depicting the marriage of himself, Crizzle Rosechew, and Magichan, although actually releasing this picture and talking about his polyamorous marriage won't be until in late April, when he also came out as bisexual. In early April, Wise and Boyd have a 9-hour-long Discord chat, which has been dubbed The Bad Beginning, and its content will be highlighted later. On April 20th, Chris and the Idea Guys have another Discord chat, this one called The Crizzle Torture, and its content will be highlighted later. In late April, a Kiwi Farms user called The Captain was informed by a person close to Chris, most likely Anna McLaren, that Chris was being manipulated and extorted. This began the endeavor to out the Idea Guy from power. By mid-May, The Captain, Marvin, who is the man in the pickle suit, and Null, who is the owner and operator of the Kiwi Farms, were in the process of collecting the evidence of the Idea Guy's crimes. In late May, Chris calls out Wise and Boyd on Twitter, and it is assumed that during this time the Idea Guys have been completely removed. On July 11th, Kiwi Farms owner and operator Null makes a post about overthrowing the Idea Guys and reveals their crimes. Null reveals that it was Anna McLaren who warned them about the actions of the Idea Guy. However, she did so extremely late and refused to help them beyond that. He also reveals that he attempted to bring attention of the crimes committed by Wise and Boyd to law enforcement, who refused to act. On July 13th, Null released the Crizzle Torture Discord chat, and on July 19th, Null released the Bad Beginnings Discord chat. It's important to establish this timeline so we can talk about certain events while having an understanding of the time frame, and to showcase the change in behavior of the Idea Guys over time. We will go over a lot of these events in detail during this video. To understand why the idea guys are as important to the modern story of Chris as they are, we must answer a few certain questions. How did they obtain this much power? What did they tell Chris? Why did Chris believe them? And where is Chris's story going as a result? The origin of the idea guy isn't quite known for sure, but we do have some details and some good theories. In the conversations Wise had with a Kiwi Farms member, he reveals that it started out as just an exercise in Chris's gullibility. At first, Wise played the part of a character named John, who was a soldier of game industry, which is the world in which the anime A Hyperdimensional Neptunia takes place. I'm really sorry for the amount of stupid anime references I'm gonna have to explain. Wise and Boyd are complete fucking weebs. Wise uses hyperdimensional Neptunia as a way to rationalize his ability to converse and interact with the characters of Quickville. In the leaked messages between a Kiwi Farms member and Wise, he says this: "Dude, at this point you have to feed into his fantasies to even just motivate him to do something that isn't spending hours on Sonic games. He could have multiple comics out this year, but he's sticking to his routines unless you tell him his fantasies are real. Otherwise, you won't get far with Chris, even as a friend of his." Wise also used fake headlines and sound bites to reinforce the things he was telling Chris. These were his methods pre his first docs. After his docs, Wise and Boyd teamed up with two unknown persons to continue to influence Chris. This time they used an isolated Discord server, and Wise and Boyd pretended to be fictional characters to troll Chris. The reason that Chris believed Wise and Boyd isn't exactly known. A common theory, and probably the most likely, is that they played into Chris's delusions. For many years, Chris had believed that his characters and Quickville were real. Wise and Boyd told Chris via fictional characters that they could influence his world, and Chris, who already believed his world was real, the thought that there were people who could legitimately influence it frightened him. And because the alternative was admitting that Quickville wasn't real, he didn't really have much of an option. After the January docs of Wise, the methods that the idea guys used to exercise control over Chris grew more nefarious. They began to blackmail and extort money from him. They told Chris that they can influence Quickville in a negative way, and that if Chris wanted them to not go through with their plan, they demanded that Chris make videos of him doing embarrassing things, and then they threatened to release those videos if he doesn't buy the idea guys' things. What the idea guys told Chris truly cements them as being one of the most influential trolls in Christory. The idea guys basically functioned as a dispenser of ideas and facts about Quickville to get Chris to react to. One of the first major things that Wise introduced to Chris was Hyperdimensional Neptunia, an anime/video game where there are these goddesses who look extremely underage, but they represent a certain video game console of the world. It's stupid, but that's what they told him. The idea guys told Chris that the antagonists of that anime/game are invading Quickville. In fact, many of the idea guys' early influences were saying that there were certain foreign powers invading Quickville, from Russians to anime villains to Nazis. According to Wise in the leaked idea guy Q&A, or just basically the messages between the idea guy and various Kiwi Farms members, he said that they planted the seed of the Nazi references and Chris kind of took off with them. Whether this is actually true is quite suspect, as many of the Nazi Germany references Chris makes have a historical significance that would go beyond him, including rescuing Sylvana in an operation codenamed Barbarossa, and multiple references to the Holocaust. These Nazi references, along other politically incorrect jokes and references, is what started to turn people on to the idea of the idea of the idea guy's existence. Nobody should have to say the word idea as much as I am. I'm ruining my own week. Fuck me. Sorry. Specifically, the freestyle Dance With Me for Our World video, in which he spouts hyperdimensional Neptunian nonsense and other references while dancing to a Serbian nationalist song. Many of the things that the idea guy told Chris are somewhat insignificant to the story of the whole saga, like the Quickville elections, which included celebrities, serial killers, and Ian Brandon Anderson, a name given to Chris by Liquid Chris during the Quick Saga Civil War of 2009. Whether he understood this reference, I don't know. During the time of the idea guy's control over Chris, he came to the realization that Rose Chu was indeed trans. This revelation from the idea guys horrified Chris, and he awaited his options regarding potentially retconning this. He ended up refusing the notion that Rose Chu was trans, as he explains here and here. Another thing the idea guy convinced Chris of was the fact that he can only have his daughter Crystal by having anal sex with Sonichu, of the non-consensual type. Chris drew this, however the drawing, despite depicting a sexual act, is largely safe for work. My personal theory about this is that he did this to kind of spite the idea guy, although I don't know for certainty. The idea guys effectively retconned Magi-chan by making him 69 years old and telling Chris that there are 69 unique Sonichus. So this is the list of 69 destined Sonichus and Rose Chus created by the idea guys, written down by Chris. I was thinking it'd be kind of funny to sing this, like in the Pokemon Gotta Catch 'Em All theme, but that would take a lot of work, and my singing abilities aren't good. So if somebody else does it, that'd be great, and so I could see it and laugh, but I can't do it because I'm not talented. So we're just going to read them. Sonichu, Rose Chu, the prime of our species. Wild Sonichu, Bubbles Rose Chu, Angelica Rose Chu, Punchy Sonichu, Magi-chan Sonichu, Sylvana Rose Chu, Simonla Rose Chu, Zapina Rose Chu, Jamsta Sonichu, Lalisa Rose Chu, Darkbind Sonichu, Zelina Rose Chu, Chloe Rose Chu, Blazebob Sonichu, Beady Sonichu, Slavachu, the Gracidala Rose Chu, Fisty Sonichu, Punchy's Bro, Silva Chu, Sarah Chu, Dr. Sylvester Chu, Casey Rose Chu, Replacement Rose Chu, what? Logan Paul Chu, Cosby Chu, no, Red Shirt Sonichu, Fogel Chu, oh, that's fucked up, Weinstein Chu, yikes, Connie Chu, Crystal La Taurus Rose Chu, Flower Chu, what is this? Number 34, Sonichu 57, Digmalachu, Mewtwo, Meowchithu Sonichu, fucking stupid, Salsa Chi Sonichu, Nana Mi Rose Chu, Mina La Rose Chu, Sternbenchu Sonichu, oof, Ducatacus Chu Sonichu, Time Chew, Imaginary Dad Sonichu, that's my favorite, Glass Chew, Jada Chew, Tita Chew, Asper Chew, All American Sonichu, Luna Rose Chew, Insuyaka Chew, I don't know, Slick Sonichu, Nana Rose Chew, I can't read number 59, Crizzle Rose Chew, Sarah Rose Chu, Wesley Sonichu, Relnak Natsu Sonichu, Mrs. Perceptor Sonichu. Wait, how is it a miss if it's a Sonichu? That doesn't make sense. Night Star Unicorn Sonnet Shoe. Wait, I thought Night Star was Chris's pony form. How can it be a pony in a sonnet shoe? I don't actually care. Christopher, Christian, Christine, Weston Chandler. Wait, is 66 and 69 the same? Is 66 old Chris and 69 new Chris? I don't know. Ted Bundy Sonnet Shoe and Robert Franklin Chandler Jr. Sonnet Shoe. Jesus Christ. Within these new sonnet shoes are notably Ted Bundy Chew and Robert Chew, along with other references that went over Chris's head. Because of the idea guys using hyperdimensional Neptunia as a way to justify their ability to relay these truths to Chris developed some beliefs about the series and incorporated them into his canon, such as the idea that he and Megan Schroeder are CPU goddesses. The idea guys also sent Chris to find a character from the series at his local GameStop, which he is banned from, so he just kind of sat in his car and honked the horn and yelled the name of the anime character. Just in case you wanted to know, he didn't find her. Chris also put out a series of text messages explaining why he is abandoning Christianity for the religion of hyperdimensional Neptunia. Fuck. I have to read all this? There's like 6 pages of autistic dribble. Oh no. Alright, here we go. Well, that's kind of an awkward jump cut. I go from complaining about this dribble to reading this dribble, and as you can tell, I'm very excited about having to do it. I'm just going to start at the second blob here. And in return, I will create something of that creator's choosing for that world there. It's positively mind-boggling, and I would appreciate it if the CPU goddesses were made aware that I had officially swapped from the god of this world to all of them, please. As my humble testimony defines, I have made up my mind well and good thought about that. Thank you. So you're a believer in the CPUs? I have officially changed my religion. So yes, I more so believe in the CPUs. Oh, that's nice, Chris. I just had a feeling of transition from having been a believer in God to becoming a believer in the goddesses. I know, no one will read this wall set if messages, but I like sharing my thoughts, at least to be archived by history. God, I hate when Chris writes. I hate when Chris writes. I hate when Chris writes. Among my thought, I had the thought of what would Jesus do versus what would the CPUs do. Oh my god. In my personal experiences and learning, I had learned from some of the Bible excerpts to take this example from long ago to compare for today's modern situations. The comparisons were valid, but in some cases I did remain most uncertain. And I was often told to listen to that voice inside your head, for among which was the wisdom of our Lord. But is it really now? Wait, but is it really now that I know more so of the switching over, because the quickie doesn't let me switch quickly? But is it really now that I know more so of the forces of Akan, who I think is the bad guy in the anime? And such manipulative, bad individuals having to differ from was that really God or Jesus, or a psychic imposter this whole time? It was a major headache. With the CPU goddesses, however, I can actually communicate with them with less psychic hassle. This is actually kind of sad. The idea guys were pretending to be goddesses via text messages and Discord, and Chris, who believed that they were actually goddesses, thinks that this is a substitute for the deeply personal and deeply complicated relationship one has with the Christian God. It's just kind of sad. And they do offer more modern alternatives and solutions, and their years of wisdom, including such wisdoms and musings from this world of olden and new, truly more insightful and inspiring, fresh in thought and perception too. You should know, though. Yes. Switching again. If you switch religions, you cannot believe in Jesus anymore. That's okay with me. I am only sharing my initial religion transitioning thoughts and insights. I am going the whole 18 yards on this. Is 18 yards the correct phrase? I don't even know anymore. I'm just not going to question reading Chris's garbage. You can quote me on that. I am quoting you. I also take to consideration that I was able to create a new CPU goddess to be fresh and new and learn from the other CPUs as well. Not to mention that it is written in prophecy and destiny that I will be a parent of her own CPU candidate, which she too will make me ever so proud. To be able to become family of such a team combination is a dream Jesus would never be able to grant, no matter how much prayer is said unto him. So I dare say, with all due respect to the Lord, meh. Jesus fucking Christ, Chris, this is heresy of the highest degree. Plus, I had become a welcome guest at first amongst the CPUs, yet I have failed at times after that, but I do fully intend to make it up to all of them with my heart, mind, soul, and being. There's not actually the word mind there. I just inserted it because I can't read Chris's dribble. And their shares of power inside my confirmed heart crystal further pushes my power outward, but still something was amiss to make such a visual and physical difference in this world. I don't know what that last blob means. I'm just going to leave it at that. Continue with the rest of the video. As we go along, please keep in mind that many of these things are revealed in the Idea Guy's Corruption book, the creation of which spans the entire saga, making it quite difficult to pin when exactly ideas were introduced to Chris. As a rule of thumb, however, everything that's talked about in the Idea Guy's Q&A was introduced before the first Docs of Wise in late January 2018. Chris's polyamorous relationship as it is today was largely influenced by the Idea Guy. His partners include Crizel Rosechew, Sylvana Rosechew, Magi-Chan Sonichu, and Mewtwo. Because of the inclusion of Magi-Chan and Mewtwo, the Idea Guys told Chris that he was bisexual, and he came out on April the 10th. It should be noted that until this point, Chris had only ever sought female partners. Even when coming out as trans a few years earlier, it is a common belief that Chris is still not interested in a physical relationship with any males. Jacob Sockness does not count. Don't come at me with that bullshit. That is kind of an overview of many of the things the Idea Guy told Chris. As I stated before, the importance of many of these things comes from the fact that they're included into the Idea Guy's Corruption book, and therefore Sonichu canon, and therefore Chris believes them. Chris still believes many, if not all, of these things referenced here, and they form the backbones to his current state of delusions. Why Chris believed all these things that the Idea Guy told him probably isn't as complicated an issue as it first seemed. Chris has autism, and he is stupid. These two things are correlated, not one is the result of the other. He has been babied his whole life. He has been lied to and trolled for the past 10 years at this point. He believes that the world of his characters are real and that his characters have emotions, hopes, and dreams. He has believed this since the Asperchew Saga. So this is kind of the groundwork that the Idea Guys were starting with when they started to fuck with Chris. The reason the Idea Guys were so successful in convincing Chris of their power is because they played into his delusions, and Wise came up with like a backstory for himself. He said he was from game industry and can manipulate the happenings in Quickville. He also played the role of other fictional characters so that he could manipulate Chris without having the blame fall squarely on his shoulders, kind of like a scapegoat. to answer the question, why did Chris believe the idea guys, you kind of have to look at the alternative. What if Chris didn't believe? Chris believed his world was real anyway, and to deny what Wise and Boyd were saying about his fictional world would be admitting that his fictional world wasn't real in Chris's head. I know that logic makes very little sense to a normal, sane person, but this is Chris we are talking about. Nothing shows this greater than the Discord chats titled Bad Beginnings and Crizzle Torture. I'm going to provide a brief rundown of each as they exemplify the control the idea guys had over Chris. Keep in mind these chats take place in April 2018, several months after Wise's first docs. In these we can see the cruel stance in which Wise and Boyd take when manipulating Chris. The Bad Beginnings chat started on April 8th and ended April 9th. The chat is basically an argument between Chris, Wise, and Boyd. Wise playing the characters of Fine and Gwen, and Boyd, I think, just playing himself. I don't really recall. Wise goes into detail about the retarded lore of his character, and they argue about the politics of Quickville, and Wise threatens to destroy it with a laser. Wise plays the role of Magi-chan as he scolds Chris for his cowardice and failing to act against Wise, who I think at this point is playing Gwen. Boyd tells Chris that he is a pedophile and demands that he makes amends for his sins. Chris asks what he can do to make amends that isn't give them money. Chris threatens to commit suicide. Boyd continues to antagonize Chris, while Wise gets him to walk down the suicide threat by playing Crizzle Rolls Chew and scolding him for it. Boyd gets Chris to make a video calling himself a fuck-up and admitting to being a pedophile, which Chris is not. Chris draws a penis on the wall of his room, and Boyd demands that he show it to his mother. Chris does this, and he claims that she was deeply offended by it and started crying. Wise plays Crizzle some more to scold Chris about the impending doom of Quickville. Chris and Wise argue for a retarded amount of time about destroying Quickville, and at the very end of the chat, Wise reveals that Anna McLaren, or it's just an Anna, I assume it's Anna McLaren, is a potential risk, and that Chris is to not communicate with her. Chris agrees. Fucking hell, that hurt. As extra credit for all you Angus fans, read these Discord chats. Because what I'm saying, it sounds stupid because it is, but you don't really get the full idea of just how there isn't really words to describe how awful and how cringy and just how dumb Wise and Boyd come off in these chats. So if you really want that experience, read the chats yourself. The Crizzle torture is just Wise and Boyd pretending to torture Crizzle Rosechew, and Chris believes all of it. It's sad, it's fucked up, and it further demonstrates the amount of control the idea guys had over Chris's state of mind, and we don't really need to go into it more than that. And that's basically where the Idea Guys saga ends. As I covered earlier, the captain was told of the Idea Guys' manipulation and control over Chris. He and Marvin infiltrated the Discord where all these things were happening. They contacted Null, who attempted to get the FBI involved due to the criminal extortion that was taking place. And as I covered in the timeline, all of this happened in May into June, with all this information coming out in July. Sonichu issue 16, or maybe it's 13. Anyway, the Idea Guy Corruptions came out in October of 2018, although the last page is dated August 3rd. The lasting effect of the Idea Guys is immense, and the damage they did to Chris's worldview is irreparable. He believes that he is a CPU goddess Blueheart. He still believes that he is bisexual and continues his relationship with Magi-chan. He believes that our dimension and the Quickville dimension are merging, acting on the seeds that the Idea Guys planted that travel between these two worlds was even possible at all. He believes that Sonichu will father him a daughter, and that his father will be resurrected when the worlds merge and become a Sonichu. He believes that Ted Bundy is innocent and a Sonichu. Chris avoids talking about many of his characters that the Idea Guys messed with, including the Chaotic Combo. He believes that the Idea Guys are fated to give him back his money, and in fact the whole saga was preordained to happen so his goddess powers could awaken. The Idea Guys also inadvertently created a doctrine for trolling Chris. Convince Chris of your power and influence, isolate Chris, tell Chris what you want to get him to act on it, profit. This doctrine is currently being employed by Jacob Sockness, and to a much lesser extent Ben Saint. Because of Chris's rigid beliefs about what the Idea Guys told him, it's made him increasingly stubborn to outside influences that don't match these beliefs. The impact of the Idea Guys sent waves through the Chris watching community as well. Because of the criminal actions and the complete warping of Chris's beliefs, many in the community feel that others may try to replicate what Weisenboy did. This creates a stigma that didn't really exist before the Idea Guys about messing with Chris. It kind of bleeds into the online politics of watching Chris, and makes them much more cynical and apathetic. Just as a side note, the online politics of watching Chris are just as fascinating and pathetic as Chris himself. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the Idea Guy saga. If you found it interesting, let me know. I'm going to put out a video of me trying to read the Idea Guy corruptions as kind of a compliment to this video. Horus Heresy Book Review Part 2 coming soon. Follow me on Twitter, and leave a comment on whether or not you've submitted to our overlord, Big Brother Mickey Mouse. Bye.